everyone, and welcome to the Mary C. Doxey Historic Clothing and Textile Collection here in the Patton College of Education. This exhibit that is currently on display is called Sunny Disposition. Now, the reason why this was chosen or inspired was in this year, August of 2020, was the 100-year anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment. And the reason why the color yellow was chosen as part of the suffragist movement was because in 1867, the suffragists in Kansas had chosen the state flower, which was the sunflower. The sunflower stands for unconditional love and unwavering faithfulness. So that was why that was our third color that was chosen, the third color that was chosen. And so in honor of that, and in remembrance of that, and also this year being an interesting year as it is, the color yellow was chosen as the theme for this exhibit. So to start off with, most of the dresses that are here on display are from the 20th century, and they're from differing eras, and that's what I'm about to talk about. So first we have this is an early 1960s, circa 1961-63 prom dress. And as you can see here is a light pale yellow. These simple pale colors were made popular actually by Jackie Kennedy at the time. She was it was very vogue for her to wear pale, simple colors that were all monotone colors. She would wear all suits that were monotone, same color. So simple designs, simple details, simple colors in the early 1960s. As you can see here, simple details, little bows around the waist, and then a little bit of a ball gown skirt, if you will. And then real close up, you can see little metal pearls to more or less add a little bit of detail and interest to this evening prom dress here. And so a lovely nylon early 1960s prom dress. I'm going to move down. And then this wonderful dress here, as you can see, early 1960s, the waist was at the natural waist. By mid 1960s, you had the waist lowering to a hip area, but this is also a very good example of a day dress. This is a good example of the kind of juxtaposition that you started to have in the mid 1960s. This outfit is circa 65, 66, again with the drop waist, but you still have a pleated skirt, which was very popular in the early 60s, but you had the shorter skirt, knee length, was very popular. Skirt lengths were starting to shorten, of course, in the mid 60s, and by the late 60s, mini skirts were in vogue. This outfit in particular is just a regular day dress. It does have a full matching jacket with it. You see a little bit of the yellow highlighted on the white dress, and then the jacket itself is a very bright, solid yellow with a solid yellow lining as well to highlight the bright color. Also, what's interesting about this is, again, by the mid-60s, you have very intense dyes, and so this is a great example of a very intense bright color that was more or less the start of the psychedelic era. During the psychedelic era, you had a lot of bright, intense colors that were poppy and that kind of gave an air of well, more or less psychedelic trippiness, if you will, to a funkiness to the clothing. And so you get a little bit mixed with that, which is great in this outfit to kind of show the mid-century muteness or the early 1960s muteness with a little bit of that funkiness thrown in as well. And so this is a great day dress for that. And then moving on back here. Moving on to the 1970s, this was a very popular line or form, if you will, in the 1970s. This is a prom dress from circa 1975 to 1978. It has a flower print all over the entire dress. And this dress is great for dating to the more or less the bicentennial. 1976 was a big year here in America, of course, the bicentennial. And so because of that, a lot of the fashion went back to colonial style fashion. And so you have the low kind of scooped neckline with ruffles. Ruffles were more or less very in vogue in the 1976 to 77, 78 era. A lot of people went for the look of prairie. Prairie look was popular at the time. Little House on the Prairie TV show was popular at the time. So again, a big sash to more or less highlight the green that's throughout the flower pattern. But this is a great example of a 1970s, late 1970s bicentennial prom dress. Carryover from the late 1700s. And so let's go on back behind this one and see a couple more of the dresses. A few of the other dresses we have in the exhibit. This is a little bit older of a dress. This is circa 1933 to 37 dress. It's actually chartreuse. Chartreuse is an interesting color. Chartreuse is actually half yellow, half green. Of course, that's also known as lime today. Chartreuse can be a little bit more green or a little bit more yellow. This one's a little bit more yellow, muted yellow, if you will. This is a 1930s evening dress. And what's great about this, and the detail of it you can slightly see there, is that bias cuts were very popular in the 1930s. So was lace, little details. In the 1930s, of course, we had the 1929, we had the stock market crash, and so the 1930s was known as a time as subtle opulence, if you will. There was struggle, there was great struggle, but at the same time, people wanted to more or less break away from that and have an elegance almost to their clothing and appreciate craftsmanship. And you don't only see that in clothing, but you see that in the architecture of the 1930s as well. So what was really popular in the 1930s was a bias cut. And so there are two bias cuts here along the bust, and then that creates the bias cut in the torso. This does have a natural waistline. However, there is a little bit of detail you can see here with slight pleats along the entire pelvic hip area. So it creates the look of a lower hip line, if you will. It still accentuates the hip line. And so you have a subtle hourglass figure, if you will, where it highlights the chest and